it took about a year to build out the restaurant. And in that time, I was doing a lot of mobile events and just trying to get a sense of what speaks to people. How are we going to cook this? How should we price it? What do people like about it? What should we improve? Trying to build a following for when the restaurant opened its doors. But I think, the mood was so somber at the time that I think it was just particularly special to be able to create something that made people, just feel good inside and have sort of this shot of warmth in their day.
Absolutely. And I love when you were telling the story about one of the first times you did a pop-up and you're at this cool event where lots of food vendors are, and it's almost like an underground food trying situation. People
Yeah.
come and they're like waiting to get in and buy stuff. And what I love the most about your story, I mean, you had a lot of learnings just from that first, go at it. But the one that I found so fascinating was you had priced yourself so low compared to some of the other vendors. And in hindsight, you were like, oh my gosh, how did I do it so low? But in that moment, it kind of helped you. Talk a little bit about pricing and tell us that story and kind of the evolution that you learned in the process.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, that event was so fun. It has since been stopped by the health department because I think it was blatantly illegal, but they just brought in all sorts of folks who were cooking food out of their homes and trying out their business ideas. So it was basically this sort of incubator slash nightclub, and they would, charge an entry at the door, and the vendors got to keep all their money. But, there was music. It was just this really fun, deeply energizing event. And yeah, I mean, the first time I ever did it, I had, truly crippling anxiety that I had stopped being a lawyer. I was pouring my life savings into this, concept. Like, a lot of friends and family thought I was totally crazy. So I really just wanted people to buy it. So, I'd say the average price point at the event was somewhere between $8 and $10, people serving a sandwich, a plate of chicken, whatever it was. And I priced my bowls of mac and cheese at $2. Which is just obscene. That makes no sense at all. But I think the goal was I really wanted no one to ever think twice about getting it. I wanted to be packed. I wanted to sell out. And yeah, it was one of those things that in hindsight was genius, because that was the point. This was not the moment to be worried about maximizing my revenue. This was the moment to get my food in as many people's hands as possible, to be generating goodwill, to be creating this sense of value that I think, pervaded Homeroom even later. And to feel like, oh my God, I'm just excited to get this, to try this, to be part of this. And I want to come back for more. And so, I do think that value in general of giving people so much more than they are anticipating is definitely, proved really critical to Homeroom's success. I think I also read about this in the book, but a lot of people think it's really just, oh, the mac and cheese is so delicious. That's the secret to your success. But, we've had a lot of copycats over the years, a lot. You can go buy our cookbook and recreate the recipes, and honestly, more than one business has. But they're not remotely as successful. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I think one is the culture that we built, which, I explain in the book, and how other businesses can do that too. But I also think we were creating much deeper value than just the food. At that time, I think this has since become more common, but in the 2010s, what I was seeing in the restaurant landscape was really fine dining restaurants that had, great ambiance and a wonderful service experience, but at a high price premium, or, sort of a low cost dining restaurant, which often had incredible food, but, fluorescent lighting, maybe little to non-existent service, to maybe sort of surly, and so I think I had worked previously in fine dining, and I sort of brought some of those sensibilities in terms of creating a beautiful space, really making sure that service was exceptional, so that when people get this $10 bowl of mac and cheese at the restaurant in this gorgeous environment with people who are friendly and are making it special, that whole experience is the value. It's not just the food itself.
Absolutely. And you really curated that idea from the start. Like the mac and cheese was exciting to you and you wanted to do that, but you had dreamed up this idea of a restaurant operating differently for the team and the employees than anyone you had worked at before.
Yeah, I mean, my sort of history and background is before I had ever become a dissatisfied lawyer that decided to open a restaurant. I'd been a dissatisfied restaurant employee. So, I mean, I had worked in many restaurants, and I just found it really tough. I mean, I was earning very little money, not always being treated particularly well, and I saw no future in it. So that's why I left. I couldn't see a future in the industry. So starting Homeroom was not just about like, oh my God, I'm excited to bring my dad's, mac and cheese recipe to the world. It was also honestly my Hail Mary to fall in love with my work because I had not previously, but it was also driven by this deep desire to create a place where other people would want to work, where they could have the experience that I had not had of seeing a future for themselves, of really feeling like they were part of something that meant something. And honestly, I wasn't sure that I'd be able to pull that off, but I'm really proud that I did. And, it took a long time and a lot of trial and error. And honestly, the book is filled with ridiculous stories about all the mistakes I made. But that's the thing I'm most excited and proud of.